Welcome to the second segment of tonight's forum, when we'll hear from the candidates for Michigan State House District 95. This district covers Midland County and a small part of Gladwin County. I am Kim Steinke, president of the Midland Area League of Women Voters. Before we get started, I ask the audience to please refrain from any vocal reactions for or against any candidate or statements made by the candidates, and to applaud only when the moderator has announced that the forum has ended. Here's a brief overview of how we will proceed in this segment. After I introduce the candidates, each will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Following opening statements, I'll pose questions to which each will be asked to respond. Each candidate will be allowed an initial response to each question up to 2 minutes in length, as well as a reply after each has had an opportunity to give initial responses. Replies will be limited in length to 1 minute per candidate. Speaker order has been determined in a drawing, and following the question and answer period, each candidate will have an opportunity to make a 1 minute closing statement. The candidates are from left to right, Democrat Matthew Dawson and Republican Bill Schuette. Timing rules for the forum will be in effect. The timer will raise a warning card when the speaker has 30 seconds, then 15 seconds, and when time is up, the speaker will only be allowed to complete their sentence. Timers for this evening are Xander Houghton and Carol Locker, and I think you've seen them. And now we will start with opening statements. Mr. Dawson has the privilege of being first to give his opening statement.
Thank you, Kim. And I want to give a thank you to the League of Women Voters and everyone that came out to be here tonight. And I want to express that I appreciate giving the voters a chance to compare their candidates before Election Day. And so also a big thank you to Bill for being here tonight. Little bit about me. My name is Matt Dawson, as she just said. I come from a working class background right here in Midland, Michigan. My mom is a nurse. My dad worked in the restaurant industry. I was raised in a working class household that valued family, hard work, and having fun with both whenever possible. There are a few things that I want to accomplish as your state representative. I want to unite our community and bring kindness and respect to our local politics, no matter how idealistic that may sound. I want to bring representation to the working class of this community, the working class that I feel is too often in today's society and politics left behind. I want to help deliver higher wages, lower taxes, and ensure that this state is as good as it can be for now and the future. I want to do that by investing in our education, our infrastructure, and protecting our Great Lakes. I also want to protect your rights. That includes, but is not limited to, reproductive rights, voting rights, right to marry who you choose, and yes, the right to bear arms. I know that I don't look like your typical politician. I get that a lot. In fact, I don't really consider myself a politician. I'm a working class, tattooed, anxious millennial. To quote the American dream, dusty roads, my belly's just a little big, my hiney's just a little big, but brother, I am bad, and they know I am bad. And, by the way, if you had the word hiney or quote from a pro wrestler on your bingo card for tonight's forum, you officially win. Apologies for the emotional outburst. But I just want to say that I want to listen and represent the people that I'm elected to serve, because that's all I want to do. I love my hometown, and I want to fight for everyone here, and it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Mr. Schuette, 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Kim, and good evening to everyone. I want to thank the League of Women Voters, AAUW, MCTV for convening this forum. And Matt, it's nice to be here with you this evening. I'm Bill G. Schuette, and I'm running for state representative because I want the next decade of my hometown to be even better than its last. And that's not going to be an easy task. No, it's going to require sending leaders to Lansing who are willing to stand up for Mid-Michigan. That's me, and I ask for your vote. So a little bit more about me is I'm a third-generation Midlander. Like my aunts, like my uncle, parents, and sister, I went to Midland Public Schools K through 12. I have 2 degrees from Georgetown University, and I had the honor to serve my country as an intelligence officer with the Defense Intelligence Agency, at home and overseas, where I provided our nation's generals and decision makers with the national security information they need to make life or death decisions. And locally, I've worked for Dow on their public policy team, so I'm familiar with the state, federal, and international issues that impact one of our largest job creators in the region. And in the last 10 months, I've had the opportunity to listen and hear from you. I've heard about how skyrocketing gas and grocery prices are making it harder and harder for you to make ends meet. That's why I want to cut your taxes to put more of your money back in your wallet. And I've heard from parents who just want their children to learn the basics, how to read, how to write, how to do math, and they want to have a voice in their child's education. And I know that Mid-Michigan's future depends on us bringing back the lakes, but also building flood reduction infrastructure so that way we're not worried about our basements flooding every time it rains. So I'm a runner and a marathoner. I know the value of hard work and I have a spirit of endurance. So I ask that we break the tape together on November 8th, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you both for that introductory information. Now let's begin hearing your answers to questions that members of the Midland League believe will be of interest to our voters. I'll let you know when it's your turn to answer each question. Also, I will repeat a question for anyone who asks. Mr. Schutte, you're going first. And the question is, do you support or oppose Proposition 22-1, the proposed amendment to the state constitution that would require an annual public financial disclosure report by all of the legislators and change the state legislator term limits to 12 years total? If not, or why? Be specific.
Yeah, absolutely, Kim, and thank you for this question. One of the many important issues that are going to be in front of voters with the ballot initiatives on November 8th. I'm personally voting yes on Proposal 1. One is because of that financial disclosure requirement. I think it's long overdue that we had this sort of requirement for our legislators in Lansing, and it's something that I think we need to implement. It's part of the reason I'm in favor of this ballot proposal, and I'll be voting yes. I'm also in favor of strengthening term limits, reducing the total number of years that legislators can serve in Lansing. I think when you combine that long overdue financial disclosure and transparency requirement with strengthening of term limits, that's why I support it.
Thank you. Mr. Dawson?
Thank you. I feel similarly. I believe in transparency in government. I also believe that there are certain aspects of our legislature that are still overly restrictive and not transparent enough. I know Michigan is one of a few states that does not require full disclosure and transparency in multiple aspects of our government, so I am all here for more transparency.
Thank you. You have a 1-minute reply.
Well, thank you, Kim. And I would just like to say that I want to add on to the financial disclosure requirements that are part of Proposal 1, build on to that to make sure we have even more transparency with our government in Lansing. I would support opening the legislature and the governor's office to Freedom of Information Act requests. That's currently not something that's on the books. That's something that we should build off of the momentum of Proposal 1. And if I earn the responsibility to represent you in Lansing, that would be one of the first bills that I support, is to expand on that very important issue.
Mr. Dawson, 1 minute.
Thank you. I believe that transparency in government is also directly tied to our money in government. I believe that we have an issue with too much money influencing our politics to the point where it sometimes feels like people can buy the seats that they have. I personally have issues with money influencing our government. Maybe I'm naive or idealistic, but I believe that this romantic idea of government, that we should truly strive to represent all of the people of the state, all of the people of the community, and of the country. And so I believe that it is imperative that we continue to seek out and strike down and bring transparency so that we can avoid some of the dark influence that money can have.
Mr. Dawson, you're going to go on the second question first. Do you support or oppose Proposition 22-2 or the promote the vote proposed amendment to the state constitution? It will appear on the ballot. Yes. Give us your answer, why or why not. Be specific.
For sure. So I do support it. One of the things I mentioned in my opening statement was that I want to fight for the rights of every Michigander, and part of that is ensuring that they do have the right to vote, ensuring that voting is something that is free and simple to do for anybody that wishes to take part. I think if we want to have the truest form of democracy, we need to ensure that we are embracing a large turnout and doing everything we can to get the largest turnout possible so that we get the truest representation of our populace. So to answer the question, yes, I do support Proposition 2.
Thank you. Mr. Schutte, how do you respond?
Well, thank you, Kim. And, voting should be honest and voting should be easy. Those are two principles that should govern our elections. But I'm voting no on Proposal 2 for a couple of reasons. One is it would eliminate photo ID requirements for voting in elections, and I think that's wrong. You should, if you have to show a photo ID to hop on a plane or to cash a check, you should show a photo ID to vote. So that's one of the reasons I'm voting no on Proposal 2. Another is it would allow third-party funding of our elections. I don't think we should make it so Mark Zuckerberg can come in and fund our elections. Those are two of the reasons that I think Proposal 2 would actually undermine confidence in our elections and wouldn't make it honest and easy. That's why I'm voting no.
Mr. Dawson?
To further expound upon what I was just saying, I think that there is a lot of misdirection being applied publicly from not just politicians, but from those who have special interests running with these proposals. And I would just want people to be educated on exactly what the proposal does and does not say, so that they can make the best decision for themselves. I personally have looked over it, and I believe that a lot of the fear tactics being used by certain people are not accurate or truthful. And so I would just say for everyone, be as educated as you can on the policy and on the proposal when you make your vote. And I am voting yes.
Thank you. Mr. Schutte, 1 minute.
I was talking to a small business owner in the mid-Michigan area recently. We were talking about the importance of photo ID requirements for just making sure everyone feels our election process is secure. And he told me, what if when a person I thought was underage came and tried to buy alcohol, I told them they could just sign an affidavit instead of showing me a photo ID. That's part of the reason I think photo ID requirements are very important for our elections, and this is not an onerous requirement. I support the efforts of the legislature in the state of Michigan to provide everyone with a photo ID. So if you can't afford one, we'll provide one for you. We'll pay for one for you. I think photo ID requirements would go a long way in restoring faith in the integrity of our elections.
Thank you. Mr. Schutte, you're going next on the third question. Do you support or oppose Proposition 22-3, the Reproductive Rights for All ballot proposal to amend the state constitution that will appear on all of our ballots? Why or why not? Be specific.
Well, thank you, Kim. And this is a sensitive issue, and it needs to be discussed respectfully by all involved. And I'm voting no on Proposal 3 because I think it's extreme, and I think it goes too far. It would allow for abortions in all 9 months of a pregnancy. It would allow for partial birth abortions. And it would eliminate the parental consent requirement for minors on sterilization procedures. You wouldn't even need to be a doctor to perform an abortion. I think that's extreme. I think that goes too far. That's why I'm voting no on Proposal 3.
Okay. Mr. Dawson, you have 2 minutes.
Yes. So I'll start off by saying I'm proudly endorsed by both Vote Pro-Choice and Planned Parenthood of Michigan. I am voting yes on Prop 3. Honestly, I don't think myself or any other politician should have any say in what a woman does with her body. I believe in supporting reproductive freedom. It ties directly into what I said in my opening and about Prop 2, that I support individual rights, and that falls under that category. I also would say, again, what I just said about Prop 2, be careful about listening to messages being sent by bad actors. Look out for extremist takes on things. You hear some people saying, oh, this will allow like massage therapists to do abortions, and it's just strictly ridiculous. I'm sorry if that's how you want to try to angle it so that your argument has more of a ground to stand on, but I want to stand on the ground of protecting individual liberties and freedoms and the freedom of reproductive choice for women. And that's between them, their family, and their doctors. I have nothing to do with it, and I want nothing to do with it, so I am voting yes.
Mr. Schutte, you have 1 minute.
Well, thank you. And, legal experts, including the former Solicitor General of the state of Michigan, have looked at the text of Proposal 3 and said that this would allow for abortions in all 9 months of a pregnancy, allow for partial birth abortions, and eliminate parental consent on sterilization procedures. You wouldn't even need to be a doctor to perform abortions. That is what legal experts are saying about this proposal. That's why I think it's extreme. That's why I think it goes too far. And that is why I'm voting no.
Thank you.
I won't bother reiterating what I just said in my initial answer because that would be redundant. So I'll just say that I want to continue to stand on the right side of history, and I believe that this is the place to stand on this issue.
Thank you. You're going next on question number 4. Do you support or oppose increasing the age limit for assault weapons from 18 to 21 years? And again, why or why not?
Sure. I do support it. I like to think of myself as a common sense gun supporter. I come from a family that owns a lot of weapons. I come from a family that likes to hunt. I've been in this state my entire life. I've gone hunting. I've taken my safety course, and I believe in responsible gun ownership. So I believe that we should look into things like red flag laws. I believe that we should look into preventing, people with a history of domestic violence from accessing weapons, and I believe that there is no reason that an 18-year-old needs to own an assault rifle.
Okay, Mr. Schutte.
Well, thank you for this important question, Kim. And, we have 18-year-olds who go and serve our country and defend our freedoms abroad. And I think they should have the same constitutional rights that all of us enjoy in our Second Amendment constitutional rights. So I would not support raising that age limit because I think if you can go and serve your country, you should also be able to fully exercise your Second Amendment rights. I also think when it comes to gun control that we need to do a better job of enforcing the laws that we have on the books right now. We have hundreds of gun laws right here in the state of Michigan that we're not doing a good enough job of enforcing. So instead of talking about defunding the police, let's give our brave women and men in law enforcement the resources that they need to keep our communities safe and keep our schools safe. I think a great policy that we have right here in Midland County are our school resource officers. It's so important that we have those here in Midland County. We need to have school resource officers in every school. We need to have controlled points of entry and exit in every school. These are some common sense steps that we can take to help keep our children safe and keep our communities safe.
Thank you. Mr. Dawson, 1 minute.
Just to further build on what I was saying, I also believe that we need to make sure that we are enforcing the laws that we already have in place before we go enacting a lot of new legislation. I think that there's been some funding issues that have led to prevention of background checks being done in a timely manner in terms of the background checks that are already in place. So I believe there are a lot of steps. I'm somebody who believes that for a problem there is not just one solution. You need to attack it from multiple angles, not just to address the symptoms that are being faced with you right away, but also getting to the root of the problem so that it does not become an issue in the future. So.
Thank you. Mr. Schutte, reply.
Yeah, again, Kim, I think it boils down to instead of putting new government regulations on the books, let's focus on giving our brave women and men in law enforcement the resources they need to enforce the hundreds of gun laws that we have in the state of Michigan already, that we have across our country. Let's give them the resources they need to enforce the laws we have. Let's not look at layering on more government red tape. I don't think that's the right answer.
Thank you. You're first on the next question. Do you think the 2020 election in Michigan was properly conducted? If not, where were the problems and what is your solution?
Mm-hmm. Well, Joe Biden is the president. We can certainly tell that every time we go to a gas station or go to the grocery store. And but when you look at the 2020 elections, I've heard a lot of concerns from voters, and that's including the Secretary of State mass mailing absentee voter applications. I know of people who received 2 or 3 different sets of applications. I know of voters who received applications for people who no longer lived at addresses. And courts courts in the state of Michigan have ruled that the Secretary of State illegally and unilaterally changed election laws and signature verification processes here in the state of Michigan. So that's why, again, I think voting needs to be honest and easy, and I'm focused on solutions. I'm focused on the future and looking forward. That's why we need things like Secure My Vote right here in the state of Michigan. We need things like photo ID requirements for voting. I'm focused on the future. I'm focused on solutions. That should be where we're looking at, is restoring faith in our process going forward.
Okay. Mr. Dawson?
Yeah, I'll make my answer simple because it doesn't need to be layered. It doesn't need to have a million different prerequisites and explanations. I'll just say, yes, the 2020 election was fair. Joe Biden won the election, and people need to move on. I'm sorry if people don't agree with that, but it's the fact of the matter. No real evidence has been presented to prove otherwise. And so, yes, to answer your question, yes. I also believe in protecting and empowering voters, which is why I support Proposal 2.
Okay. Mr. Schutte, 1 minute.
You know, again, I want to focus on solutions for problems that we see. So that's why I support things like photo ID requirements and Secure My Vote. But, you know, I've knocked on 9,000 doors with my team across the mid-Michigan area. You know what I hear? I hear about the price of gas going through the roof. Everything from a gallon of milk to a carton of eggs going up and up in prices. Let's focus on real solutions to those issues. And that's why I'm focused on 2022, this election right here, creating solutions for real problems that Michiganders are facing.
Mr. Dawson?
You know, to expand upon the original point, the original question about the 2020 election, I just would continue to ask our community to be educated on the issues, to be educated on what's going on, because our lives and our democracy are at stake. So continue to remain attentive and be educated on the issues and vote for what you think is right.
Thank you. Mr. Dawson, the next question goes to you first. Recent national test scores indicate that students 9 years of age suffered worrisome declines in reading and math. What are your legislative priorities to increase educational performance throughout the state?
So I'll start off by saying that I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Michigan Education Association. That's something that's very near and dear to my heart. Originally went to college to be a teacher. I have an immense amount of respect for our educators and for our public school system. I believe that, I'll start off by saying that I believe standardized tests and the way that we're doing those testings are not the best way to actually measure what's going on with our students. But furthermore, what I think is important to note is that the last 2 years have been hard on all of us. We all know that, we all live in that reality, but imagine living that through the eyes of a child. It's very difficult to do. I can only imagine how hard it is to learn, not just in such unsure times, but also in a period where you might have to be learning from school one day, you might be learning from home the next day. You know, we live in an area where, unfortunately, in some of the more rural parts of our county, there's not great broadband access, which is why I support expanding work into our infrastructure to make sure that all have broadband access. I also think that we need to ensure that we're supporting our teachers. You know, they are the ones giving our students education, and if we want them to do the best job possible, we need to make sure that they are being helped. We need to make sure that they are being supported and that they can give the best experience possible to our students. Our students need to feel safe, not just physically, but mentally, which is why I've been encouraged by some of the recent proposals and budgets that have shown an increased amount of money going into mental health facilities for our children and mental health professionals being available for them to consult if they need to. Again, we need to attack this from multiple angles and get to the root of the problem, so it's not just going to be one solution, but I think that if we are dedicated to it and we can work together, that we can fix this.
Thank you. Mr. Schutte.
Well, thank you, Kim. And, if you look at our third grade reading scores in the state of Michigan, it's abysmal and it's embarrassing. We rank in the bottom 10 of states in the entire country on those basic metrics. So that needs to be our focus in our schools, is teaching our kids how to read, how to write, how to do math. These are the essentials. And our kids were set back under the forced school closures during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we need to dedicate every resource to making sure that our children are learning. That means after-school tutoring programs. Let's make sure that our kids are learning, they have the resources that we need. But we also know that the best outcomes for students happen when parents are involved and parents have a seat at the table. So let's make sure that we have full transparency in our education and that parents are involved. That's how we can make sure that our children are learning. We're failing our kids right now. We need to turn it around.
Mr. Dawson, 1 minute.
Something that's been getting a lot of attention, and rightfully so, in this community recently is the Midland Public Schools school board race. I hear from people talking about, you see the signs, the Moms for Liberty signs about Year of the Parent as if it's a zodiac sign. And the fact of the matter is, yes, parents do need to be involved, and they need to make sure that their students are completing their schoolwork and are getting help whenever they need it. But at the end of the day, we do need to remember and realize that we have trained professionals who have dedicated their lives to education. And for us to try to take that out of their hands and pretend that we know better when we have not done what they have done, we have not completed the things that they've completed. We hear politicians talk about wanting to support our police or our law enforcement. Well, let's support our educators, because they are just as important, if not more so, because they are having a direct impact on the next generations to come. So support our teachers, make our students feel safe, give them a welcoming and inclusive environment, and I think we will see amazing results.
Thank you. Mr. Schutte?
Well, nobody cares more about their child than their parent. And learning begins and ends at home. So if we want to make sure that our children are learning, let's make sure that their parents are involved in the process. That is going to create better outcomes for our kids. And again, we need to devote every single resource to making sure that we have after-school tutoring programs. Our kids were set back. Our kids fell behind during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our bad third grade reading score levels got even worse. So let's make sure that we're taking every step, and parental involvement is so key in making sure that that happens.
Thank you. You're next on the questions. What will you do to support efforts to upgrade the Great Lake region's drinking and wastewater infrastructure?
Well, thank you, Kim. This is an important question because we're the Great Lakes state. So when we think about our environment, when we think about our state, we think about how important it is to protect what is a treasure of our region and a treasure of our state. And right now in Michigan, we have a record more than $70 billion budget and a $7 billion surplus. So now we have the opportunity to make select investments in critical infrastructure. That includes our drinking and wastewater systems. And if you look here locally in mid-Michigan, we have the opportunity to build flood reduction infrastructure to make sure that every time it rains, we're not worrying about our basements flooding. And they may not be as big as the Great Lakes, but we also have an opportunity to rebuild the dams, bring back the lakes, and build state-of-the-art dams right here in the state of Michigan. So let's take some of the record levels of funding that we have right now in Lansing, dedicate those funding to making sure that we have clean water drinking programs. We provide upgrades to infrastructure across our state, and here locally, let's build flood reduction infrastructure. Let's rebuild the dams and bring back the lakes.
Thank you. Mr. Dawson?
Thank you. The Great Lakes system makes up 84% of North America's surface freshwater and over 20% of the world's supply of surface freshwater. That means that we need to protect that. That means that we need to make sure there are no corporate water withdrawals that take our natural resources and sell them to the rest of the world. We also need harsher penalties for corporations that break our pollution laws and ignore them. If the only punishment for a law is a fine, then that law only exists for the poor. And by that, what I'm saying is that until the cost of the punishment is higher than the savings that these companies get by breaking the laws and ignoring them, nothing is going to change. On the note of infrastructure, we do need to support flood infrastructure. We do need to support rebuilding the dams. We also need to avoid privatizing them because as we have seen, that privatization can lead to subpar conditions, which then end up getting passed on in the form of taxpayer dollars going to fix the issues that they refuse to get fixed. So again, I believe that we have to do multiple things to address this, but those are a few that could give us a good start.
Thank you. Mr. Schutte?
You know, back in January, I was knocking on doors in a cold, about 15-degree day, and I talked to some homeowners, and they told me about how they love Midland, how their home has been in their family for generations. But they said, you know what? Twice in the last 3 years, our basement has flooded in. It's making it really difficult for us to stick around in a community that we love. So right now, when we have the opportunity, when we have record budget surpluses, let's make sure that we're investing in flood reduction infrastructure so that this can be a community where we're attracting people to start their businesses and build their lives. So let's make sure that we're building that important flood reduction infrastructure and making sure that we're protecting the entire ecosystem and water system in the Great Lakes state.
Okay. Mr. Dawson, 1 minute.
I've been very encouraged recently to see more and more people finally come to the realization that we need to do things to combat climate change and combat the issues that it is causing us to be faced with, such as historical flooding that seems to be less and less historical because it keeps happening more and more. So what I would say is we also need to take a look at what we're doing for alternative energy. We also need to take a look at what we are doing to invest in our future. It isn't just about investing in today, it's about investing in the future so that our children and our children's children actually have a Midland to call home.
Okay, thank you. You're next on the question. What are your legislative priorities to address the issues that arise from income inequality?
So income inequality is something that I feel very passionate about. I think that the widening wealth gap in this country is concerning, to the point where honestly I don't really think of upper, middle, lower class. I hate the phrase lower class to begin with because it denotes lower than, which is disgusting. But more importantly, I think nowadays we have a wealthy class and a working class, and it's getting to the point where the wealthy class hold a lot and the working class hold a little. You know, there are some things that we can do to combat that. We can do things such as offer tax incentives for small businesses that want to offer more fair and competitive wages so that they can compete with larger industries. We can make sure that corporations and the top 1% are paying their fair share in taxes by closing loopholes that they abuse to avoid paying their fair share. I believe that the working class in this community and nationwide is underpaid and overtaxed. So I would support initiatives to lower income tax for those in lower tax brackets. I also would support including things like raising the EITC, which at one point was 20%, was lowered in 2011 to 6%. I saw a recent survey that showed that if we were to raise it back to 20%, for example, in the Midland area alone, we would see an increase of over $1.5 million into our local economy. These are the kinds of things that we need to address if we want to be real about ending income inequality and giving people a fair shake no matter where they live and what their background is.
Okay, Mr. Schutte.
Well, thank you, Kim. And I think this is really a question of making sure that we're growing our entire economy and making sure we have a bigger pie for everyone to enjoy. And there's 3 ways I think we can do that. One, we can cut our state income tax. We can give every single person in the state of Michigan a pay raise. And when we cut that state income tax, what we're also doing is we're providing our small businesses, so much of that income is small business income. We're allowing our small businesses, our job creators right here in mid-Michigan, to invest more in their communities. That's very important. 2, we can also expand the Earned Income Tax Credit. That would provide targeted financial relief directly to working families. That's a good policy that we can get working to, again, help make sure that more of your money is going back into your wallet. And let's look for opportunities to have more and better jobs in mid-Michigan and in Michigan. And that means more opportunities in the skilled trades. Those are good paying jobs that can help provide ways to give people a hand up and help grow our entire economy, help grow that entire pie right here in mid-Michigan.
Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
1 minute.
So another aspect that I think can help us with this growing inequality is helping strengthen education for not just primary school, but for university, for trade schools, whichever direction somebody wants to go. I think that we need to continue to strengthen the idea of providing all available options to our students, not just trying to funnel them into a college system that I believe is fairly broken. I think that we have a severe issue with cutting funding to public university, which in turn leads to higher tuition costs, which gets passed on to the students, which then goes into the rising student debt crisis. And again, these all go hand in hand with each other. So we need to be able to address this so that when we graduate from college, we're not left with crippling debt. I also have an issue with the idea of lowering taxes for all. I hear some politicians talk about this. I think if you're saying that, you're also implying that you're going to cut taxes for people that already don't need that, and I would support giving those tax cuts to the working class, not just everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Schutte?
Well, again, we need to grow our entire economy. We need to make this the best state in the union to start your family, build your business, and live your life. And that's only going to happen if we're more attractive to companies, to families, to set down their roots here. And right now, our business climate in the state of Michigan, it isn't competitive. That's why people are choosing to move to Texas. They're choosing to move to Florida, to Tennessee. Those states have better business environments. Right here in the state of Michigan, government's taking too much out of your wallet. So let's make sure we're putting every single resource we can to putting more resources back in your wallet by cutting your taxes. And I want to talk on the importance of the skilled trades. I had the opportunity to visit the Greater Michigan Construction Training Academy a few months ago. That's a great program that provides a solid pipeline of job opportunities in the skilled trades with some of our local contractors here. Those are the exact types of programs that we need more of right here in mid-Michigan. And I think that's a great way that we can help make the pie bigger for everyone.
Okay, Mr. Schutte, you're next on the question. In addition to office hours, what will you do to make yourself available to all of your constituents?
Well, thank you, Kim, and I'm very proud of the fact that in the past 10 months I've knocked on 9,000 doors across mid-Michigan. I mentioned days when it was 15 degrees outside. I think the hottest we had was a heat index above 100. So that's the same type of work ethic that I'm going to take to Lansing, is making every single effort that I am in the community and listening, working to you, and I will make sure I continually go the extra mile to listen to you, to hear from you, and to meet with you. And that's the type of representative I will be in Lansing.
Yeah. Mr. Dawson.
Yeah, I'm going to be here. I'm a pretty easy guy to find. I stick out in a crowd. I wear colorful clothing. I have tattoos. I'm a big guy. I'm loud, as my wife likes to remind me a lot in public spaces. But on a serious note, it is that. It's make myself available. It's continue to be the open, transparent, easy to get a hold of person that I am. I mean, if anybody messages my Facebook page or my campaign website, it's going directly to me. I'm the one that's handling all that and answering all that. So, like I said, easy person to get a hold of, easy person to find, not gonna hide from you, and I'll always be here whenever somebody needs to talk, and I'll listen.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Schutte, 1 minute.
Well, I mentioned that I'm in favor of government transparency. That's why I touched on the Freedom of Information Act previously. But I'm, put my phone number on all my campaign literature on my website. You're welcome to give that a call anytime. In office, I'll bring that same level of exposure. And I tell you what, I'll probably come knock on your door if I haven't already. And we're hitting doors for the second time now here in the city of Midland. So looking forward to continued conversations. Looking forward to always listening to you. That's the type of representative I'll be.
Thank you. Mr. Dawson?
Not a whole lot more to add than I'll be available. Like I said, I'm an easy person to get a hold of. I'm a very transparent, open, easygoing person. So I intend to be the best representative I can be for this community, and I am dead serious about that. So part of that is making sure that I am available to the constituents. I mean, the whole reason for doing all of this is to fight to be a representative for them. So for me to then turn around and not be as accessible as possible seems counterintuitive.
Okay, thank you. And now you're going first on the last question.
Ooh.
Where do you see the biggest opportunities for bipartisan achievements?
I think overall, if we really are honest and speak to each other, we have a lot of the same goals, right? We want our children to be safe. We want them to get a good education. We want them to be able to go on into the field that they choose and be able to find gainful employment. We want people to be able to work an honest living and be able to afford a roof over their heads, some food on the table, and some gas in their car, or electricity in their battery, whichever you choose. The fact of the matter is, these are the things we want. I think most of us are not, overly greedy or ambitious people. We just want the chance. We want the opportunity. We want that equality. And so, getting to the heart of the issue, that's what I want to strive for. That's what I want to fight for. I guess that would kind of wrap it up.
Okay, Mr. Schutte.
Well, I think we saw here tonight that there's a mutual support for financial disclosure and transparency in government. I think that's certainly an area where we can find some bipartisan agreement. And what I tell people when I'm going door knocking is, I'm not going to agree with you on 100% of things. You're probably not going to agree with me on 100% of things. But we can disagree without being disagreeable. And I think that's something that's often missing in our politics this day and age. So that's the type of legislator that I want to be, and I want to be a bridge builder, not a bomb thrower. And I can promise you that that's the type of legislator I'm going to be. Is I'm going to work to find solutions, and we can try and find common ground without compromising our values. I really do believe that.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson.
Thank you. Something that I've spoken about before, and something that I recently wrote in an opinion piece for the Midland Daily News that hopefully will get published soon, is the idea of the kindness in politics. It's bringing that kindness and respect to politics. It's even if you disagree with someone, or even if you have differing viewpoints, that you can still talk to them and be their friend and be their neighbor and be their family member. I think we have fallen into the very easy pitfall that is letting the internet and social media control a lot of what we think and what we view. We get caught in these echo chambers instead of actually getting out there and talking to people and getting to hear more differing opinions to help expand our viewpoints. I think that it's always important to try to view things through other people's points of view, because if you're only viewing things through your own spectrum, you're making yourself the main character of life, and that's not the reality of the situation. We are all the main characters of our own stories, and we need to embrace that, and we need to work together. And I think that if we bring that kind of attitude and willingness to the table, that we can find bipartisanship.
Thank you. Mr. Schutte, a final reply?
Yep, I will promise you in Lansing that I'm going to work to find solutions that work for all Michiganders. I'm going to, again, look to be a bridge builder, not a bomb thrower. And I think that we may not always agree, but we can disagree without being disagreeable. And I look forward to earning the responsibility to represent you in Lansing.
Thank you. This ends the questions. We're now going into our 1-minute closing statements, and Mr. Dawson, you're going first.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, again, I'll finish kind of how I started by thanking everyone for being here tonight. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting this together, MCTV for hosting it, and thank you to my opponent for being here as well. I want to be your representative because I want to fight for you. I know that I am the underdog in this race. I understand that I don't have the funding or the connections or the name recognition, but what I do have is heart. What I do have is commitment. You've seen me, I'm not a natural politician. There's times where I've tried to read off these note cards and I've ended up more jumbled than if I just was to speak from my heart. And that's because what I want to tell you is not something that can be scripted or faked. What I want to tell you is that I care about this community. I care about the people that live here. And maybe I might disagree with some of you, and maybe some of you don't see the world the way that I do, but at the end of the day, I want to fight for you, and I want to be there for you. I want to bring representation to the working class of this community. I promise you that if you vote for me, that is what I will be dedicated to, and I really hope you give me that opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Schutte.
Well, again, I want to thank our host for convening this forum, and Matt, it was nice sharing the table with you. I ask for your vote for 2 key reasons. 1, I am earning this responsibility, and 2, I am prepared. In the last 10 months, I've knocked on more than 9,000 doors with my team across mid-Michigan, in the rain, in the snow, in the frigid cold, and in the heat. I've had 6 Ask Bill G neighborhood meetings. I've visited every single township and met with job creators in all corners of the 95th district. And all that, I've only had 1 dog bite. I'll bring that same work ethic to representing you in Lansing. And I am prepared for this responsibility. With the Defense Intelligence Agency, I was entrusted with America's highly classified secrets, and I helped support our counter-drug and counter-terror missions. If I've briefed generals at home and overseas, I can stand up for you in Lansing. This is a long race, but I am up for the task. I ask for your vote on November 8th.
Okay, that's it, voters. Candidates for State House District 95 have given you a few of their views. We hope something said here tonight will help you in your voting decisions. And now for the wrap-up, I want to thank the candidates for participating in this forum. Even more important, a sincere thank you goes to the candidates for their willingness to serve as elected officials in these challenging times of governing. And to our listeners and viewers, thank you for your time and interest in watching this forum. Members of the League of Women Voters of the Midland area sincerely hope that what you've seen and heard on this program tonight will help you with your voting decisions. We believe it is a vital citizens that they demonstrate that they're informed and active, so please be sure and vote. For more information on candidates, you can go to vote411.org, an online voter guide published by the League of Women Voters. Polls will be open on Election Day, Tuesday, November 8th, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you are voting in person, be sure you know the location of your designated voting place and have your necessary ID with you. Absentee ballots are available for all registered voters in Michigan. You can submit an application at clerk's offices in the city and throughout Midland County. They must be returned to your clerk's office before the close of the polls on Tuesday, November 8th at 8 p.m. If you return your ballot by mail, use 2 stamps and mail it as early as possible. If you use a designated drop box for ballot returns outside of clerk's offices, be sure it's for your clerk. If you have questions on absentee voting or any other aspect of the election process, please contact the appropriate clerk's office or go to michigan.gov/vote. And finally, I extend a very special thank you to the people who have made this program possible. To our production manager, Matt Richardson, manager of MCTV, production director, Matt Thomas, production specialist, Chris Ferguson, and production assistant, Tom Knob. Thanks also to the following contributors from the League of Women Voters of the Midland area: Sue McCollister, Tracy Brown, and our timers, Sandra and Carol. Lastly, thank you again to all of you viewers for joining us this evening to hear from the candidates running for our State House and Senate, and have a good night.